digitaljamsessions.com. Hello and welcome to this Digital Jam session. Today we are joined once again by Paul from Legion M, and we have with us Moose from Primordial Radio. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hello, Tyler. Thank you for inviting us.
So, Paul, because people know who you are, I'm going to ask you
Do they?
very briefly to reintroduce yourself, explain exactly what Legion M is.
Sure. So I'm Paul Scanlon. I'm co-founder and CEO of Legion M. And Legion M is, we call it the world's first fan-owned entertainment company. And so what we're doing is we're allowing fans to co-own the company with us. Then we're partnering with top Hollywood producers and beyond Hollywood to bring movies, TV shows, and virtual reality projects to market. But these are projects where the fans are in on the ground floor and have an ownership stake in it. Okay, and to give an example, now that we have some projects on the ground, we can talk about things like Colossal. Absolutely. So we have our first movie in theaters, and we're super proud of it. It's being hailed as one of the most original new movies of the decade, and it's already number 7, I think, on Entertainment Weekly's top movies of the year. And it's called Colossal, and it's starring Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis, and it's written and directed by Nacho Vigalondo, who's a guy that we really like to support. And it's an amazing film. And we were able to partner on that film and came in. We came in actually at a later stage because it was already being produced, but they were able to make room for us to co-own that project with them. And then when it released in the US in theaters just a few months ago, we were able to really move the needle for them because all of our co-owners were, eager to go out and see this movie that we now owned a piece of. And the beautiful part of it was that it was not only good business, like it made sense and it helped the film be the success that it deserved to be, but it was also a total blast. Mm-hmm. And, our community really kind of came together, and we hosted, and we had people from the community host meetups to go see the movie together. And so we had, I think, almost 40 different meetups around the country to see the movie, some of which had over 100 people. I mean, we helped sell out theaters across the country. We gave the film on opening weekend, finished at the top of the box office with per screen average. So, it was an experiment, and it was an exercise of our kind of model. And we're really proud of how it went. Awesome. Okay, so for those of us who don't recognize your dulcet tones, Moose, why don't you explain a little bit more about Primordial Radio and your background?
I am Moose, but, christened Hugh Evans. I didn't get Moose until I came to the UK. Can I just say I'm loving Legion M? I think that's a great idea. So for those of you who don't know anything about Primordial Radio, our ambition is to serve the community, a very specific community in the United Kingdom. That's the rock and metal community that has received pretty poor service in commercial radio for many reasons, because it's a very difficult genre to A, agree upon, and B, to commercialize. So with the advent of technology, there is an opportunity, we feel, where you can perhaps merge the unique experience of a digital stream, where it is utterly unique to you, but also bring in the social aspects of radio. Because the beauty of a unique experience is like, hey, I get exactly what I want. But that would be like going to a gig and you being the only person in the room. So the idea is to have a collective shared experience and a unique experience at the same time. And when you think about radio being social media before social media even began, that's where we see the real opportunity to bring those two things together. And radio, strangely enough, is one of the industries that has withstood the digital revolution simply because of its delivery. And you would get it on FM or you get it on DAB in this country. But now, as we illustrated beautifully last Thursday, the coverage is everywhere and is only getting better. Every single piece of hardware is driving us towards that streamed experience, isn't it? And so there is an opportunity that exists now, and it's based upon the community. It's not based upon the industry. It's not based upon the artists. It's based upon the community and that group of individuals who have, I shouldn't say been neglected because others have tried and failed, but so far have pretty poor service. So we would like to increase that service by 7,000%, if there's a number you want in my head, and bring the community together. And that's the whole idea behind Primordial.
Okay. So one of the things I think is really fascinating about what both of you are doing is that you've put the community and your audience at the heart of what you do and why you do what you do. So I'm kind of curious from the perspective of a lot of people understand what crowdfunding is. They understand the idea of they go to Kickstarter or Indiegogo, they give their money and their money gets taken away and they may or may not get a t-shirt or a CD or whatever the thing is. If it goes well, they might get that, and even if it continues to go well, beyond that, they don't get much else. They get a pat on the back and a thank you very much for supporting us, but they don't really get an involvement or a relationship with the brand or the owner of the IP. So I'm kind of curious from your perspective how you see this relationship with your audience, because it is quite a unique relationship. So I'm going to start with you, Paul, because obviously you've been at it for quite a while now. How do you see that relationship with your audience? Because you've got your Facebook audience and you've got your forum audiences, and then you've got the people who are doing the meetups, but it's a very different kind of dynamic that you have with your audience.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, first thing I would say is that we're huge fans of Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and the whole crowdfunding phenomena has been amazing. But for us, there was a part of it that was missing. And I think the UK was out in front of the US with regard to equity crowdfunding, where you can own a piece of the company and actually have real shares. The US just implemented that through our SEC last year. So for the first time in our securities laws history, we're allowed to go out and not just have a Kickstarter campaign, but to allow people to co-own the company together with us. And we feel like that's crowdfunding at the next level. And what it means from a community standpoint is that it's more galvanizing. I think the idea of people aren't just backing something and making a donation, which might, they're probably passionate about it and that's why they would do it and they'd get some reward for participating. But the fact that they own a piece of it kind of changes the perspective, and it gives it an added dynamic where now they're on the same side of the table with you, and our success comes together. And I think that's really helpful for perpetuating a community so that it stays together, because now we all have this common bond. And it's one of the things that we've already seen is that we think of our company as a community. It's a community before it's a company. And that community is already organically getting together and meeting each other and organizing their own meetups. And the only common thread they have is that they co-own Legion M together. But that bond means something to them because they've all decided to put their hard-earned money behind a concept and a project that they believe in. And so it's been really fascinating and rewarding to watch this community come together and to watch how emotionally rewarding it is. So when we think of our investors, we think of them getting what we call total ROI, meaning we want them to have a financial ROI. Of course, we're a business and we're monetizing our projects and we want to be successful financially. And they'll hopefully, if we're successful, get a very strong financial return from their investment. But we also want them getting an emotional ROI. And that comes from being a part of something, joining this community, meeting other friends, making those connections with other people that have a same interest level in entertainment projects. And real quick, I just want to say one more thing. I'm glad I still have a UK bank account because I'm going to be investing in Primordial. Yeah. I think I'm very interested. And Hugh had me when he told me he was from Winnipeg and played hockey. But my only regret is not wearing my helmet T-shirt this morning. I literally almost put that on because I'm a very big fan of hard rock and metal music. So, and I love what Primordial's doing. Very cool. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to kind of pick up on is that one of the things I note about your audience for Legion M is that a lot of people, when they first come into the community or they kind of first get involved, they're quite surprised by how many people are actually part of the community from the actual industry. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who are professionals within the industry who have become part of your community. And so I'm going to throw this kind of over to you, Moose, which is with the primordial radio approach, obviously it's slightly more difficult to necessarily get people who are actually within the rock or heavy metal kind of industry to necessarily participate. So do you see this as more of a personal
preference in terms of the taste in music rather than necessarily engaging with people who are within the industry?
Many questions in there, really. And can I just say that we have been at this quite some time as well. Okay. We have set up rock stations in Manchester 8 years ago. Then we set up Team Rock. Mm-hmm. And it was very much set up on the traditional model of selling advertising. And through that, we saw the passion of the audience. And our experience in Manchester, for argument's sake, we put on a day where we just found tribute acts. We had no money. And, we were kind of the little bastard child of the radio group in which we existed. And we sold 5,000 tickets to go see a bunch of tribute acts. Mm-hmm. And we sold our radio station T-shirts. Mm-hmm. And on that day, we sold £5,000 worth. And to which everybody within the company that we worked for that had much bigger commercial brands that were CHR, very approachable sort of pop music, they were gobsmacked. And so that's where the opportunity was, but our model didn't fit within there. So that's kind of, so we have been at this, so we understand the audience.
Okay. And my apologies for not knowing.
But that's okay. But honestly, and you wouldn't know that because you wouldn't find that in any information that you can find about us on the internet. That's who we are. And that's our background. So although we're in the infancy of this idea, we've been at it for quite some time. So this is kind of the physical manifestation of all those years of effort and thought. So if you're wondering about is it the approach, are we trying to have a different relationship with the industry, or that will come, but it's not the primary aspect. And the best way that I can really put it is everybody wants to get access to Metallica, everybody, and they will have a wall around them, and they will cherry pick the ones that will get the best coverage and So we're really quite interested in the 80,000 people that are standing in the field that are watching Metallica, because we have access to them and we know them. We are them. We're the ones standing in the field. And as Paul so rightly said, there's a sense of ownership when you sell something. Okay, you have an emotional attachment to the music and the people involved in that. But the second that money has changed hands, there's a change inside of your head. And now you are financially invested as well as emotionally invested. And there is, I don't mean to sound like I'm trying to take advantage of that, but all of a sudden the mentality behind it and people fiercely wear it on their chest, and they'll fist pump and they'll evangelize. We would be on a long road to nothing if we thought we could get the industry to do that for us. And that's no disrespect to them. They're just not going to do that. And why would they do that for us? Because there's kind of nothing in it for them. If we can galvanize enough people and find enough evangelists, then you think of a concentric circle, how that just moves outward. And then from a handful of people, as we've begun right now, then the audience will build. At that point, you become attractive to the management and the musicians. Oh, look, they have, just as Spotify did. Spotify all of a sudden, they came out of nowhere, really, although they did 10 years of hard work, and then all of a sudden Spotify became Spotify. Now all of a sudden they're doing big deals with Iron Maiden and Corey Taylor's on there, and they did it. They got the crowd, and then naturally the industry and the artists say, "Ooh, there's 100,000 diehard metal fans there. It would be worth our time." So we're just taking it, we're just reversing the model, really. That's all we're doing.
Okay, so bearing in mind that with somebody like Spotify, you buy the service, you're subscribing to the service, and you kind of understand, that's what I'm paying for. With something like what you guys are doing and this exchange in terms of you own a part of the company, how do you set that expectation bar in terms of once somebody's paid the money, suddenly they have this expectation of being, and I've seen some of the posts on your forums, but some people will come in there like, right, how do I put my script in for this, and how do I get you to do that, and there's this real kind of this expectation that they've given you money is exchanged hands, therefore they now have a creative voice in your endeavor. How do you set that bar of expectation? Because the problem is when you have a crowd or a large audience who are all participating in the creation of something, you can't have 1,000 creative voices all speaking at the same time, because you end up with nothing. And so I'm curious as to how you set that bar, that expectation. What's been your experience with this?
I don't, to be honest, I don't know what the expectation is, because we haven't really sort of got down that road. But you're right. At some point in time, particularly those who don't know us, those who are not already emotionally invested, those who come at a later stage, say, you were saying you can provide this service, you can have just like anything else, and we would have to deliver that. But in terms of, you're talking about the collective, all of a sudden we've got 6,000 people with a voice. Of course they do. So as much as we're trying to democratize the process, this is not a democracy. We have a very experienced and set of individuals who are going to run this on behalf of the community. And we've never tried to steer away from that. We said, okay, people, and we will, as Ben, we will turn to the audience and get the opinion and gauge our decisions upon that. But in place is a management team that has been there and done that, and will take as best as we can the best decision to take that forward so that everybody benefits.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Paul? I know you've had.
It's a great question, and it is something that we've been working with, and we were pretty clear up front that we're organized in a similar way. There's an executive team that makes final decisions, and that we do want everyone to genuinely have a voice, and so finding that fine line between community-driven creative projects versus having a community back creators. The way we look at it, and what we've been very hopefully communicative with our investors, is that Legion M as a company wants to back creators that we believe in and not interfere with what they're successful at and what they're good at. So what we would do is we would allow that. Our goal is to allow that creator more freedom than they might have working with a traditional studio, because in our case, we're fans, and we're fans of that creator like Nacho Vigalondo. We don't want to meddle with Nacho's creativity, but when we're working on a project with him, we want Nacho to know that he has access to our community, and that there might be certain creative components or opportunities during production where he could go back and he could be better at what he does if he has access to a community like that. And I think finding that match, so, a lot of people think of it as either being black or white. Well, you either have a voice or you don't have a voice. And if you have a voice, then you're going to create bad product. And if you don't have a voice, then, and we don't see it that way. We see it as kind of, there's an opportunity to optimize it, and where you can truly let the creator be creative, but support them in a way that people do have a voice. And I think in our case, the voice is also has more to do with the type of projects that we want to get into. And so this is why our Facebook community and our online forums are so important, because, just like with Hugh's company, we want to understand the audience. And so their voice is telling us what they're into. What books are they reading? What movies do they like? So that it's not going to help us if we go out and we create projects and product that they're not interested in. So we have to stay in tune. We've done several initiatives that allow us to understand in our community who the tastemakers are. We have a project Pitch Elevator where we let the Legion vote on all the pitches, and we put them up and we make it fun, and it's a competition, and everybody, it's like fantasy sports for hearing and reviewing pitches. And so I think there is this perfect scenario where you're not meddling with the creative process, but you're adding value to it.
May I add that the biggest challenge that we have had in a linear service is making a rock station. Because what is rock? All three of us will have a very distinct view of what that is. I may be into my thrash, you might be classic, you might be hair metal, whatever it may be. So our audience will have, I don't know, I just went for hair metal, I don't know why.
To be fair, I did listen to the radio station, and I was mildly surprised at what I heard, because I thought it was going to be a lot heavier than
and that's kind of the idea, because we will play it all. So if there's the mothership of the soup, we're calling it the primordial soup, the whole theory. Okay. So if you want to listen to the linear soup, you're going to get it all, and you have no control. Yeah. But as a member, then your voice can be your finger. So we use the comparison or an analogy of, think Spotify meets Tinder meets radio. So the three of us are listening to Primordial at the same time. We're listening to the same presenter. We're getting the same content. However, our songs will be drawn from our database, and all of a sudden you get Metallica, and you go, "Ooh, I don't want that." Swipe. And then and it will learn, and then say, "Oh, you're a classic rock. You like your classic rock." So when you come into your primordial, so the biggest objection. So we may have 20,000 people. We certainly have 20,000 people with very distinct opinions as to you should play more of this and you should do this. Well, we're basically giving it to them, and then if they don't like their service, they can just look in the mirror. You swiped it, man. Exactly.
You only have yourself to blame. Love it. Okay, so obviously, bearing in mind what you do, and I'm gonna say that I still think both of you are very much at the front edge of what you do, respectively. So one of the questions that we always ask, we like to ask, is what do you think is that significant change that needs to happen, be it a cultural shift or a technological shift that's going to change the way that you're doing business? And bearing in mind just how far on the front edge of things you are, because let's face it, neither of your industries have caught up with you yet in terms of what you do. What do you think is that thing that needs to shift? And we'll start with you, Moose.
Mentality and behavior. For us, if you look at rock, and we're not trying to pass ourselves off as, to the youth, because I think we kind of lost that battle if you look at the age of me and us involved. So we're looking at our core audience between 25 and 44, and particularly the latter edge of that. For example, we did a primordial pub quiz, and so we stream a pub quiz that is interactive on your mobile, and you watch on YouTube. So the
live streamed to multiple
live
locations,
stream,
I might add. And
bizarrely, last week, and I'm going to stick this in because this is really relevant. The idea was if we had internet, if we had Wi-Fi, we could do anything. That whole thing, if you managed to see it, with everything that was involved, was done from one iPhone on 4G.
Seriously?
Underneath a railway arch in the center of Manchester. That whole thing. And we had technical problems, and it was that the power demand was too much for the iPhone, even though it was charging, and we ran out of power of an iPhone plugged into a wall. That's what we ran that off of. So the fact that we had fellas, like middle class Call is a primate. He's a primordial. He was at home with YouTube on his television playing on his mobile, and he said, "Whoa, like I'm like watching TV," because that's in his head. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and this is changing so quickly. So sort of the later adopters, because we use the example of Facebook. Facebook is sort of mom and dad's social media now, isn't it? But, that sort of late adopter is now going onto YouTube, is now the platforms that have been there for quite some time. So it is just simply, it's being able to get the coverage to where a South Korean level, that would be superb. But we're getting there. And just the mindset that I'm getting everything that I need on this mobile device, or I can link it to my television so I can have the traditional experience that I know and I'm warm with. So for us, technology is there. It's already there. It's really just a mind shift within our audience. And they're coming on board, and if they're, and I actually won't use that analogy. But people, if they have something, if you remember back in the, you won't remember, you're too young, but back in the day, there were no rock stations in the UK, but there was a massive rock festival, the Monsters of Rock. How did all these people know about rock? Because they were getting magazines back in the day, because it's the only, and they would go find the content because that was what they were interested in. So just like that kind of comparison, our audience will make the effort and find it because it's not there for them. We're just providing that service. And honestly, it won't, in 2 years' time, we won't even be having this conversation.
Okay. I'll come back to you in 2 years.
Okay.
Paul, what about you?
All right. Well, first and foremost, I agree that we're the way we describe it, we're at the top of the first inning, and with Legion M, we're really swinging for the fences. Our goal isn't to raise a few $1 million and, invest in some small, low budget projects. Our long-term goal is 1 million fans. Mm-hmm. We want to unite 1 million fans together. Right now, the average fan puts about $500 to $600 in. Mm-hmm. We tell people that we don't want their life savings. We don't want their college tuition money. The minimum investment in the US is $100. If we reach our goal, or when we reach our goal of 1 million fans, then we'll have $500 to $600 million to invest in projects that have 1 million people financially and emotionally attached to those projects. And we think that could make us one of the most influential media companies on the planet. And now getting back to how do we do that? And what does that take? I think for us, it's all about community. And we're like evangelists for community oriented businesses and the power that they create. I've successfully built and grown a company in the past to, 100 million in revenue and 400 employees around the world. But we never really had a community. We had our users, but we weren't really connected to our users, or we never really united them in the way. And from an investment standpoint, we had venture capital, right? So our community was a group of 5 people that were representing the $100 million that we had raised. And I think this is next level, and it truly is I'm in awe of it. Because as an entrepreneur, I've seen the difference. We were very successful in growing Moby TV, but in the early days, I've already seen how magical and inspiring it is to have a community backing us at the most instrumental time where you need that kind of backing. Like you were saying, if we want to, we opened a storefront because our users were saying, or our investors were saying, hey, we want to buy Legion M gear. We want to represent. We probably sold $60,000 worth of gear to our constituent, our investors that want to represent. I mean, it's an amazing thing. So, and then I think it leads to something that's even more aspirational, because I think as a society and as a civilization, really, we need community. Like, community is the one thing that I think can help us. And, our world is a chaotic mess right now. And I think, if I look at the one big trigger that might occur that kind of transforms us as a civilization, I think it'll be when our community needs to come together to fight something that's otherworldly. And, I'm not hoping for that. I'm just, that might be the trigger that pulls us together and unifies us. Until then, we need to do the best job that we can to all get along and work together. But at the end of the day, I think it starts and stops with community.
Okay. Well, as always, we like to give our listeners a way to find out a little bit more about what you're up to. And we ask you to do that by sharing with us your social media handle of choice. What would that be?
I don't even know what my Twitter handle is. It's at Moose Rocks, but is there an underscore between the Moose and Rocks? I don't know.
We'll look you up. We'll find out.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't even know what my own Twitter handle is.
But if somebody wants to find out more about Primordial, where would they go?
Primordial.
Primordialradio.com.
There you go. Thank you.
And in our case, it would be Legion M Official, either on Facebook or Twitter. We also use the hashtag #IamLegionM.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for listening. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe and review, and follow us on Twitter at DigitalJam Ltd. Thinking of starting your own podcast? Why not speak to the GL Pro UK team? They handle all of our podcasting service needs. Tell them that Digital Jam Session sent you, and you'll get 10% off your first order. Find out more at www.glpro.co.uk. DigitalJamSessions.com